Good morning, everyone. This is Lee Schunemeyer over here at AOS. I'll be hosting our presentation. I just wanted to pop in just a minute early and say hello to everyone. I'm going to be in a slight time delay, so in case I reference a time or whatever else, and it's just a minute or so behind where you're at, that's the nature of broadcast. So I really appreciate everybody coming in today. I wanted to make sure that everyone can see the Q&A on the screen and also our voting section via Microsoft Pulse. Please check on that, and we'll make sure to answer any questions as we have along the way that you can post. And also, I might throw out a couple questions where you want to get a yes or no response on, just to see if we're heading in the right direction. I hope you can take advantage of that as well. Thanks so much for joining in here. I'm going to wait just a few more minutes to make sure everybody gets into the broadcast before we get kicked off. But thanks again for coming and talking with us today. Really looking forward to talking to you about Microsoft, the cloud, and specifically about identity and security work together now. Very exciting topic for me, but I'm crazy like that, so hopefully you guys will find it interesting as well. Had a couple questions pop in. If you scroll down in the center of your screen, right below the presentation slide, there'll be the Q&A session there. So you might need to scroll down on the left-hand side of the screen for the Q&A to pop a question in there. Sometimes it gets blocked out by slightly smaller screens. So just if you scroll down there and throw a question in to make sure that you're able to do that, that'd be great. All right, we've got quite a few people in the lobby here and have joined us. I wanted to welcome everybody again that came in just a few minutes late. Very excited about today's topic. It's one that I've been working with for quite a few months now, for the last for years, in fact, since Microsoft started bringing Azure online and all their different cross-cloud products and things to way to bring identity into the forefront and make sure it's the single pillar in which all things Microsoft work with are tied to. So today, we're going to go through a lot of stuff, but I'll try to be quick. I've scheduled out a half an hour for us, so let's get started. Now, just to let you know who I am, I'm Lee Schunemeyer. I'm a design architect here at AOS in Kansas City, and I work primarily with our team here out of this area for Microsoft-related things, such as Azure, enterprise mobility and security, on-site identity, and in the cloud. So I just want to throw out my information here in case anyone has any questions later on and wants to join on LinkedIn or on Twitter. I'd really appreciate talking to you guys after the presentation, and if you have any questions, I look forward to those as well. So today's an ongoing series that AOS and C1 are working on together for Microsoft specific. We're going to do each month have some ongoing topics where we talk about SharePoint, Azure, Microsoft 365, enterprise mobility and security, Windows 10, Windows Server systems, basically the core of all of Microsoft, especially the Microsoft 365 and SharePoint suites. We'll be talking about how specific things in your environment might be able to take advantage of those things, or things that you might already have bought but haven't actually used, how might be able to use that, and then maybe start a conversation later on about what you learned during the presentation webinar and how we might be able to help. Now, most people know this, but I always make sure to remind that AOS is a huge Microsoft partner. We have, amongst our 7 states, over 46 Microsoft team members that are dedicated staff to Microsoft. And of those, we have Microsoft Exchange certified masters. We've got 11 Microsoft design architects like myself, and 32 Microsoft engineers. And that team has actually grown since we've merged with CovergeONE. And we've got people around the nation that can help with everything you want to do in regards to Microsoft. Very, very talented team I work with. Very proud to be here. But I want to make sure that everybody knows that AOS is a Microsoft company just as well as all the other products and services we offer. So today's agenda, very quick. We're going to go through a lot of topics here about identity, and we're going to touch on a lot of different things and hopefully start a conversation about that and get you thinking about things that you may want to do but don't think you can, and work on things that hopefully you can bring to bear very quickly. And if there's anything afterwards that you have any questions on, we can help answer this for you. So today's not going to be a sales pitch. We're not going to talk about any specific pricing or anything that has to do with you need to buy this, and then we can talk about it. It's more informative and get you guys up on the features and things that are out there. And then if you have a need or see a possible fix that's in our conversation, I can bring that up and we can talk about it later. So the real-world uses of cloud identity, management security of identity, and then we're going to run through some static screenshots of single sign-on reporting. We also do near daily live demos of all these products. So if it's something you want to see a step-by-step of how this works or how it might work in your environment and have a direct conversation about that, that's what I'm going to be here for on my day-to-day basis. We have entire dedicated demo environments around this so we can show you exactly how it works in a live environment, step-by-step, and then talk to you about how it might apply to your environment. So always encourage that, never a charge for that kind of thing. We really like to show off what we know and how it might help you. So like I said, we're talking about identity and core and focusing on access and security today. And the common things that we hear about and talk about on a regular basis is what are these things we're having to do that are just network related or business related or security related, that are threat detection, knowing if your users have been breached, access control, detecting and limiting access, but also enabling people. How do I make sure that we have proper passwords and access for people and being able to stand up and access applications that aren't necessarily on our network. Software as a service applications, things that aren't necessarily on my network, how can I control access to those and give people a single sign-on experience for that, but also control and keep compliance and regulatory things under control as well. Things like data breach are something we hear about in the news quite often, if not every day. And then, of course, shadow IT is something we hear more and more about every month from our clients. So where not only do they have applications on the network that they did not install, but applications that aren't installed in the network that are outside the network, such as Dropbox and Google Apps and Suites and other Microsoft services that aren't aligned with their business, and how data gets into those that is corporately owned, and how to control and access to that data, but also enable people to use those applications in a way that's useful for them, but that you can monitor and maintain and control so your regulatory and compliance needs are met, but also, and probably most importantly, that security and your intellectual property doesn't slip out of the network unknown to you. So those questions in mind, we always, and me as a 18-year vet of networking and Windows infrastructure and just overall network administration, we knew if you were pre-cloud when you worked on this stuff. Before it was, we had everybody in the network. They may get a VPN in. We controlled that. Otherwise, it was all the data and all the access and all the storage was physically inside the premises of the business. All the data was on the same local area network, and that's how it was controlled. We didn't have to worry about, people might walk off with a computer, get stolen, but it was, not a problem. And then, of course, USB sticks and other things came along, and that eroded somewhat, but it was much easier to maintain than it is today. So, layers of defense, physical control, and then, if everyone has ever seen The Matrix or any tech show, when they got hacked, they said, let's cut the hard line, and they just turned off the internet access, and then they were safe. As most IT admins know that are on the call, that's no longer the case. The perimeter is gone. There is no longer the physical boundaries for most people. Everyone is out with their laptop, their mobile device, working from home, working from Starbucks, on the road, accessing information at home, and they want to use things instantaneously. People have their phones, they want to bring things up, and the problem is that everybody has access to everything else, which also means that hackers and other people, rogue actors, have access to them. And then to go along with that, identity is slippery, meaning someone can create a user account very quickly, very easily, input that information, and that access that they placed in that application, it sits right next to the application or data that you have for your corporate environment. And they can move data back and forth, most usually between those places, and you have no control over that. And moreover, you can't control that identity that they're placing on those other third-party systems. So, a user can access a corporate network and everything in between, and you know little to nothing about how that's being accessed. So, single sign-on is where I want to start about the topic. So we've talked about some of the pain points. Let's talk about some of the solutions. Single sign-on used to be a dream about having to access stuff. It was kludgy and had to stick things together in order to work. But now it works so seamlessly across products that are inside your office, outside of your office, with existing Microsoft products and things that you never would have thought, meaning Apple and Google and other things like ServiceNow and Salesforce, all interact with Microsoft's products, especially products that are tied in with Azure Active Directory. So on that note, this is one of the things we demo all the time, and I'm going to show you some screenshots of, is how the Google and any other web-based application that meets standards can be put into the same dashboard as your users. So here we have a screenshot of the My Apps portal that's within Office 365. Now, for users that don't have Office 365, this wouldn't be available, but most people, as they're moving towards that, have this. And people typically look at it as only Outlook and only email. But you can see in this shot here, there's all their desktop applications with Word and Excel. They're web-based. And, of course, things like the new My Analytics and Microsoft Flow. And then below the line, we see all the things that aren't necessarily through Office 365. And I've drawn a crude arrow there. I'm not much of a mouse painter. And pointed out the Google Apps integration. Now, I've set this up as a demo in this environment, but I use it every day in our corporate environment as well, where I can leverage Google resources and Google Cloud and Google G Suite, but still using my AOS credentials, which means that AOS can help control and see who can access that information that I've had, and I don't have to remember 2 different passwords and log in and out of systems. I can maintain a single username, a single password that has strong password encryption, and that also my IT team can see when it's being used and how it's being used and where it's being used at all times. No, go dig through the event logs and find anything out. They know exactly what's going on and when. So in case a breach happens or I forget my password or give it away, they'll know about that as opposed to after the fact. So Google Apps is right there, and then if I click on that, that's going to load automatically my Gmail or any other app that I tie into that automatically. Now that's, as you'll notice, is not the AOS login. That is it's my personal website that I set up for our family that's tied into that. So that has nothing to do with our corporate environment. However, I'm using corporate resources and corporate credentials to access it and track and maintain and monitor that. And once logged in, I'm in to my Gmail account. It's very easy to set up, especially on these levels, but moreover, we can help show you the best possible scenario of how to set up these access controls. So what is identity in the enterprise for mobility? Because right now we have to admit that everybody is mobile. Laptops out in the field, people with their phones, accessing data, responding to information. It's very common, and it constantly happens. So identity is the foundation for enterprise mobility. Identity is security. It all starts with identity. So you'll see on the left-hand side, we have on-premise, and then we've got Windows Active Directory and other directories. Well, now, from extending that, I can take my existing directory in which all my identity and credentials are stored in Active Directory and extend that into Azure Active Directory. And Azure Active Directory keeps a double encrypted version of my password, not the password, but a hash of it that has been encrypted twice in the cloud and allows for my users on-premise to access everything in the cloud, not just Office 365 products, but third-party products, Dropbox, Cloud, ServiceNow, Workday, Google Cloud, your Apple the iCloud. It's an amazing amount of applications that are out there that are ready to be accessed. where you can control access, you can allow users access, and publish those to them very easily. And the controls behind that, the compliance controls that go along with it, can extend with some things as multi-factor authentication, password reset, the ability to install and control strong passwords that are both and it all can come from your on-premise Active Directory and control it that way. So you don't have to reinvent new policies and procedures or new password standards or have two passwords, one in the cloud and one on-premise. What you create on-premise extends into the cloud and then into all these other applications, and all the reporting and all the access and conditions that start on-premise extend to the full right-hand side of the screen into the cloud and back again. As you can see, a simple connection, self-service, and single sign-on are three things that reside in Azure Active Directory. The biggest part of that is self-service and single sign-on. Self-service is fantastic because with Azure Active Directory on the Premium 1 account, you can set up where end users, both on-premise and remotely, can hit a website, authenticate using challenge questions, multi-factor authentication, pins to their phone or authentication apps on their phone, and verify themselves and update and change their own passwords, even unlock a locked account, as opposed to pinging your IT staff at 3 in the morning. Someone's got to get something done, they accidentally enter the password in 5 times wrong, and they get locked out. They can authenticate, prove who they are, and access it. And moreover, with conditional access inside of Azure Active Directory, even if someone compromises the phone that they're on or finds a way around their challenge questions, if it has any kind of higher level risk, meaning they're accessed from an unknown location or from a device that has no certification or certificates installed locally, it will see that, and the advanced intelligence that's built into Microsoft's Azure Active Directory will detect that, and based upon your policies, block access to that person. So even if they get around your levels of passwords and multi-factor authentication or whatever else, if the situation, the location, or something doesn't add up, the artificial intelligence that's built into Microsoft Azure Active Directory will stop that access and allow you to enforce rules automatically. So just as a breakout, thousands of apps, one identity is not an understatement. In fact, it's a couple thousand apps right now that are available in the Azure Active Directory marketplace that can be integrated with single sign-on right now. And even with the free and basic versions of Azure Active Directory, you get access to up to 10 applications for your users that can extend. And that doesn't even count Office 365, which comes along with that no matter what. And business without borders is a concept you'll be hearing more and more about over the next few years, that computers, people, things don't have to work on site. They can be out anywhere. And moreover, with things like site-to-site VPN becoming less and less relevant and having direct access via Windows 10 Enterprise into your environment, you can have a full connection that's fully encrypted from your device into the on-premise and in the cloud without any other software installed other than Windows 10 Enterprise on your laptop. Now, for some users, that may sound like, well, we can't afford Enterprise and Pro. We'll talk about more later about how that's no longer an issue with Microsoft, and they've given you options around that. And, of course, manage access at scale. This is a common thing that people talk about. It's, if I'm a small business, I'm a large business, does this fit? This is directly on a one-to-one user basis. There is no infrastructure that you have to install on site, what I'm talking about. It's a little software on site, and everything is in the cloud with Microsoft. So you don't have to buy extra software for on-premise. You don't have to buy new hardware. You don't have to buy new operating systems. As long as you meet the minimum requirements for Windows Server, you can install everything that we're talking about today with almost no exception. So access thousands of apps across any directory, meaning the 2,500 pre-integrated popular apps that we were talking about, custom applications that you build, both on-premise and in the cloud, you can extend Azure Active Directory into, and also applications that other vendors provide, you can help customize and access into that as well. Moreover, you can select applications that you do not want your end users to have access to and block single sign-on access. So we talked about security, and we talked about identity and shadow IT. These things are across the board. So the transition to cloud and mobility, and then the new attacks as they pop up with data breaches and shadow IT and the on-premise data breach, these are things that Microsoft is directly addressing. The current things that you have on site just out of the box, don't prepare for these kind of things. With man-in-the-middle attacks and people guessing passwords and using common passwords, these things just cannot prevent that. So Microsoft spends $1 billion a year, $1 billion, addressing that security issue that they can apply to Azure and all the products, and that's the kind of backbone that you can take advantage of with identity access through Azure Active Directory and Microsoft products. And they take that approach and back it up not just with $1 billion, but also approach that is holistic, meaning that it goes across all their apps, nothing's left out, it applies to everything, and of course through third parties like Google and Apple that it all just works with. And it all starts with identity. Everything on Microsoft starts out with identity security and access permissions. Everything starts at the level of identity because the identity is not only security now, it's the new management plane. I have to set up users, I have to create access. Identity is the way that it creates that access, and then we build everything off of that. Here's your identity, here's your security, here's your applications. It all starts there. I'm sure the HR people that are on the call today will agree that the people that they set up and how they get done and who they have access to, everything builds out of that. And with what we're talking about today, especially the innovation and intelligent pieces of this, can all start right there. So when new users come online, they're given a username and password, and it gives them access to everything they need, both in-house and through third parties. And then, of course, intelligent, the Microsoft Security Graph is one of the most amazing things in security now. All the information that flows through Office 365 and Azure all stops and starts with the security graph. So you get to take advantage of everything that we know about those environments right ahead, all the information that goes through those systems, everything that Microsoft learns, they pass on to you on a daily basis to prevent threats and create an environment that is really, really secure. So identity-driven security, there's three basic concepts, and to me, I like them because they're straightforward. Protect at the front door, protect your data against user mistakes, and detect access before they cause damage. The front door concept is very common. That's where we create the user on the front side here where they're accessing information on the network, how they're getting in, what they're going on, and then finding how they're getting access into things, and then mistakes. They keep entering the same password over and over and over in different systems. They use things that might already been compromised, like they had a password on yahoo.com and now they're using that on the same network. Well, that's obviously been stolen. So it helps protect your data against user mistakes like the same password being used repetitively. And of course, to detect attacks before they stop access with multi-factor authentication and also the advanced artificial intelligence that's in the Microsoft Cloud can see risk before it happens. Odd logins from here and there, people trying to do things that they don't normally do. And that's extended both in the Azure Active Directory into things like Cloud App Security, which is built on top of the Active Directory that's in Azure, looking for risk storing, policies for data control, things leaving the network. And of course, those extend into things like Microsoft Intune for on-device control. And then, of course, Azure Information Protection uses those access rights on the device to control, label, and protect information that is out there. So not only do we have access to it, we can extend that with Azure Active Directory and other products from Microsoft to control and hold that data based upon what kind of data it is and then how to remove it, especially with Intune, where you're able to say, I can wipe that entire device, the mobile phone, the Windows 10 laptop, delete all the corporate data, even if it's a personal device, and keep that from falling into the wrong hands, especially if that device is lost or stolen. And of course, that builds on the Active Directory with the advanced threat analytics and then Cloud App Security and the Azure Active Directory Premium, where behavior analysis, looking at common threads, and then easily be able to detect and see trends inside of your network where you normally would not see it. For an IT admin, nothing's more scary than seeing a user account being consistently checked and failed for password guessing over and over again. What's interesting is that's not a thing that's immediately available inside a Windows Server and Active Directory. That kind of thing doesn't happen unless you do a special customization around it. And even then, it doesn't have any notification systems built into it, so someone at 3 a.m. trying multiple passwords over and over again won't be able to tell you about that. So to that line, I wanted to show you some of the things that build on top of this. So we've talked about Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, some of the products that go on top of it like Intune, Cloud App Security, Advanced Threat Analytics. But one of the really interesting things is that reporting and monitoring piece. So I can control access, I can create policies, I can create access, but how do I see what kind of access and data goes along with it. So Microsoft has built out in Power BI, their business intelligence platform, a ton of information that immediately pulls out of Azure Active Directory, and by extension, your on-premise Active Directory, and shows you information that you would never be able to see by default. So if you see here, I've got total apps, number of users, total number of sign-ins, a geographic map of where people were signing in at, and then a full log of what person was logging into what application, not just into the network, but at what application they were accessing and what device. And as you see here, there's a big spike here on this one Friday of over 268 access, which is clearly not past the norm. Now, granted, this is a demo environment, not our actual environment, but this kind of intelligence where you can look at a piece of information as an IT admin, the security analyst, and see something that's an outlier that would indicate a possible breach of your network. More graphs. Everybody loves graphs, and be able to see your most commonly used apps, all the things lined out in these that you can drill down to specific sections. Each one of these panes we saw on the previous page, you can see all of the different things along with it. Skype web experience, Azure portal. Here's my top applications. Here's my #1 locations that are going around. All this information is pulled from Azure Active Directory and your on-premise Active Directory and shown to you so you can pick out trends and possible breaches and information. And for compliance, of course, it's fantastic. So a lot of these things we're talking about are directly in Active Directory Premium, but it builds into the Enterprise and Mobility Security Suite, which we touched on. So it all starts with identity. You have to have that. And then you want to get into cloud access, security, endpoint protection. It all builds off of that. So as we talk more about later at other meetings, we'll talk more about these enterprise systems for mobility and security. Now, for business users that don't necessarily want to talk about tech but need to know the statistics behind that, is Microsoft 365 has a ton of information around it. 81% of all hacking-related breaches happen. It's a crazy amount of stuff where they happen on site using existing user passwords. They don't hack the system and find a flaw. They just know someone's password because they keep using the wrong one or store it insecurely or find it. Sony had a massive breach a while back that had just a full list of Excel documents filled with passwords. Enterprise level identity protection from Azure Active Directory, Windows Hello for biometrics on the device, Credential Guard that keeps passwords and credentials encrypted, and of course conditional access and cloud app security we talked about previously, where it's going to detect things that you would never know without advanced artificial intelligence that is tied to it in order to detect some possible breach attempts and breaches when they do happen. And as a real world example, we use a ton of Citrix here at AOS, and the Citrix Cloud is a fantastic product. It has a ton of ways to give access to all of your applications that may be on-prem and aren't ready to be web-enabled, but you don't have to create a separate username and password inside of Citrix, and also you can cloud-enable that from Citrix and their new cloud platform into Microsoft Azure AD, and then extend that to your own Microsoft Azure cloud or your on-premise cloud. So here's a separate company with a separate product that you may consume and may, up until now, have separate usernames and passwords for, can all integrate together. So from the end user standpoint, all their apps, data, credentials, and access are all in the cloud, are all accessed by the same username and password they currently have, and they don't have to do anything different other than just work. So as for breaches and information, an interesting thing came out last year, and it actually went down over previous years, but the average number of days someone's on your network as a rogue actor is 86, meaning someone could be on your network almost 3 months. You'd never know about it in existing systems. And proper identity and security that starts with Azure Active Directory helps ferret those people out, because you'll see them try to get in before they actually get in. Oh, and I apologize, I moved some stuff up here. I already showed that information there about analyzing your data in the Power BI. I apologize, that slide's out of deck, but basically showing the data. So it's not just about secure access and double hashes and password protection. It's about being able to report and detect breaches easily, and then without having to dig through a bunch of data and make assumptions on anything. So AOS is all behind all these products from Microsoft. We have a ton of experts behind it, and it's important to touch on this, but I want to make sure that we all know the reality is that 4.2 billion customer records were compromised. The 99 days from breach to detection, 86, 99, and then $17 million in average cost of security breach. Now that's a number that even as an IT admin say, well, I'm not that big. I don't make $17 million. How can I lose $17 million? That's just the average. But the impact can't be denied, both in people, time, staff, how much time they lose, intellectual property that gets lost. These things are real. So you start tacking up overworked staff, increased compliant obligations, and all that stuff. These are things that we can help with, and I hope that we can. And that's the brief run through. Hopefully I didn't run through things too fast. I want to make sure that everyone gets their questions answered. I didn't see anything pop up during the presentation, but I hope you guys do have some questions. This is a lot of great information that can be brought to bear very quickly. And we have a fantastic demo team, like I referred to earlier. We have a fantastic partnership with Microsoft where we can run through and do a demonstration, a workshop. And I want to make sure that you were all invited to come back monthly to our events that we have both on site and future events that we're going to be holding at the Microsoft Technology Centers in St. Louis and Dallas and Chicago, where some of our clients can be invited to see these products up close and personal. So if you're ever interested in seeing these things live, give us a call. We'll set up a time. We can do a remote session or come on site and show you how it works. Anyway, again, my name is Lee Schoenemeyer. I appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you so much. And I'll stay around in the questions and comments here and keep the meeting running and try to answer those for you now in the Q&A session. Thanks so much. Still here in case anyone has any questions at all. Off now. All right. Well, it's a little bit over the half hour. Hopefully, I didn't get anybody outside their lunch hour. Feel free to take the next half hour and just tell everybody you're seeing an awesome presentation here at AOS, and go outside and enjoy the nice weather. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.